Hey, champions, I expected to be coming to you live from Israel this week and for the next 3 weeks, but the plans changed. The last week has been crazy, unbelievable attacks, tragic loss of life, and unthinkable brutality. Pray for those in the region, pray for the hostages to be returned safely, and find ways to support people who have lost family members, homes, businesses. I have friends and colleagues in country and in the region. Over the last week, comparisons have been made to 9/11 or Pearl Harbor here in the States, and I think that's very much on point. I was at Pearl Harbor earlier this year. But multiply the loss of life by 30 just to help wrap your mind around the scale. The population differences, 1,000 there. Imagine like 30,000 here. And then the history of the Holocaust and other things on top of that. Most of you know all book profits go to charity. One of our core values is using business to give back. And for the rest of October and November, at least, they will go to humanitarian relief in Israel specifically. The Israel Emergency Fund, UJA Federation, their website is ujafedny.org. Started in 1939, 99% of every dollar goes to help people. Extremely capital efficient, which I really like. So consider doing the same and supporting the Israel Emergency Fund. Well, this was a trip that has been planned. It was originally 2020 and then again in 21. And now we're looking at 2025. Next year's all booked up. So we'll see. And, honestly, I was really kind of bummed about not going again for a lot of reasons. I've been trying to do this for a while. But I think how we deal with disappointment is important, especially as business leaders, so that disappointment doesn't lead to disillusionment. Have you ever done maze puzzles or, maybe a maze in real life? Did a thing where I was in a glass mirror maze. It was a time competition and, dead set on winning and finding the goal, the prize, the elusive cheese. And then I saw it. I mean, it was right in front of me. It was so close I could reach out and then smack right into a wall. Setbacks. It's kind of like spices in food. I mean, they can either overwhelm your dish or make it unforgettable. Yeah, and I've experienced hitting those walls in my entrepreneurial journey as well. How about you? Most of you probably don't know an Israeli inventor named Dov Moran, but I promise you that his inventions have affected your life. I know, I mean, I'm just blown away at some of the inventions, but most notably, he invented the USB flash drive. Anybody ever use one of those? It's like, how do we ever live without that? Founded a company called M Systems, massive success, and sold to SanDisk a few years later for 1.6 billion. And that was when $1 billion was actually worth something. There weren't, unicorns, all the time. But it was a $1 billion revenue company, sold 1.6 billion. Absolutely amazing. Former employees started over 30 companies. It's incredible. I mean, not unlike PayPal. His next venture was a company called Modu. It was creating the world's smallest cell phone, which is absolutely brilliant. I mean, phones were getting smaller and smaller. We started out with giant bricks and it gets smaller and smaller. And he actually won a Guinness World Record for the lightest cell phone. Amazing, brilliant design. It launched at the same time as the iPhone, which made phones big forever because they have screens now and other things on them. And then the credit crisis, 2008, investment dried up. Big losses, fired 130 people, liquidated patents to Google for $5 million or so. Colossal flop. Big high, big low. Yet he considered this a positive turning point in his career. I mean, that is mind blowing in itself. But he did. Positive turning point. Said it made me stop being afraid of failure. When you don't fail, you fear it. Once it hits big, you are released. He said, this freed me to go wild with ideas. Man, I want to think like that because failure is one of those things that is inevitable on our journey. We're going to have setbacks. So if I want to think like that, let's crack the code on converting those flops into jackpot wins. How about that? Well, first up, I think reframe the game. Turn setbacks into setups. And every time life hands you lemons, consider it a chance to perfect your lemonade recipe. We all go through tough times. We all go through setbacks. We all go through challenges. We all go through problems. They're inevitable. It's part of the journey. The difference is the story that we tell ourselves. What does failure mean? Does it mean that I'm not worthy? I'm not good. I can't do this? Is it the end? Or is it a learning opportunity? Is it the beginning? Is it figuring out a way that doesn't work? Is it the beginning of a new climb up? Reframe the game. Second is armor up. Being resilient, isn't a birthright. It's not something that you're just born into and like, I'm resilient. It's something that takes time. It's armor that is forged through trials. Forging requires heat and pounding. Have you ever watched metal being worked? That doesn't sound fun for that to be happening to be the metal. But each failure adds another piece to your invincible suit. The way is through. So be resilient. Go through those trials. That is the way. And then add that armor up. And lastly is know when to fold. This is something I'm terrible at. But resilience isn't just dogged persistence. It's knowing when to pivot and, dare I say, sometimes even abandon a sinking ship. Surround yourself with wise counsel who can support you through that, can give you advice, can tell you when to hold them, when to fold them. But I think that's an important thing, and something I can learn is really, know when to fold them, know when to make those pivots. You know, a pivot is not admitting failure. It's, successfully sidestepping, a front end collision. Yeah. So are you using roadblocks as stepping stones to greatness? Let's use setbacks to pave the way for monumental comebacks.